Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Arts and Ideas. I'm Sue Swinand, and my guest today is C.M. Judge, who is a multimedia, interdisciplinary artist who really, in your own words, you said you use whatever material works best for the project or the intent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
She's also a teacher who teaches in Fitchburg, and she's very involved with research almost in the creative process. Mm-hmm. And you also are involved with a lot of community public projects.
One of my passions is community-based public art, where large numbers of people come together to make something that's really dynamic and meaningful for their community.
Wonderful. And are most of those up in the Fitchburg area?
I do have some in Fitchburg and as far away as Washington, D.C. at Dulles International Airport.
Wow, wow. Well, you know, I know you've exhibited internationally, mm-hmm. and she does video and photography and sculpture and installation and...
Sounds crazy, doesn't it?
A little bit of everything, but
yeah.
We're going to try to show you some... you recently had a project at Arts Worcester that
yes.
was, I was very fortunate to catch, which was Beyond the Gaze. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I was so honored to be chosen as the inaugural recipient of the Present Tense Prize, which is a new initiative for Arts Worcester. It was an idea born of the necessity of reaching out to a larger community around technology and art. And so it's an award for risk-taking art that embraces new technologies. And I'm so delighted that Arts Worcester has embraced this new art form.
They're doing a lot of wonderful things.
Yes, and Juliet Fievel had this vision of how can we acknowledge mid-career artists who are taking these risks and doing what she considered to be very strong work.
And it's not always that marketable either. So
right, and finding a place to exhibit it locally is a challenge.
Well, you know, I think they did a beautiful job at the Arts Worcester Aurora. You know, that was Tim
yes.
and you installed. And
Tim Johnson, fabulous preparator, someone who had a vision.
But to change that space to be the right space for multiple video
yes, that's always tricky. There's sound, there's light, there's flow. You want people to walk in and have a dynamic experience.
Yes.
When you're doing a solo show, there's always that issue of a sensibility that's being explored.
Yes.
And so you want there to be moments that are kind of crescendo experiences, and then you want other moments that are softer and quieter.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's a kind of,
you did
it's
a great
a dance.
job. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, he was wonderful to work with.
How did you get involved with technology so much, and where did you study and all?
Well, I was, you know, as a kid, very drawn to drawing. I loved to draw. I loved observing and drawing. And soon my drawings became paintings, and then my paintings, when I was in college, started to become sculptures. And then my sculptures
You wanted them to move.
Yeah, I wanted them to move, and they became environmental. I wanted to walk through them. And the next thing I knew, I was dealing with light, and then it made sense to have sound. And when you're doing light and sound, you're jumping into video. It just was a logical sequence. And many, many artists have followed this path. This is a very common thing for people my age to be involved with. And so I majored in drawing and painting at UMass Lowell, and then went on to do my graduate work in an art and technology program at MIT. Through the Center for Advanced Visual Studies. And there I picked up video and sculpture, environmental sculpture.
And thinking outside the box.
And thinking outside the box, that's right, that's right.
Which is all what you're interested, the whole thing of creativity and how it all fits together.
Yeah, I think each artist has to find his or her rhythm and their intentionality and their truth. Because ultimately, I think we're searching for truth, we're searching for beauty and goodness in a variety of ways. And as long as you're on that path, searching for that, you're going to find it. And for some of us, it's
it'll be authentic and
yes.
it will be significant.
For some of us, that's messy.
Yeah.
It's just messy. We
Yeah.
don't have the privilege of a single medium over a long period of time. We have mixed media options.
Even with a single medium, it's messy.
No, it's
because
messy,
you
right?
have
That's so
to-
true.
You have to search.
That's true, for sure.
So you got the Present Tense Award, and the work that you showed there, I thought maybe we'd start by showing the audience one of the videos there. Tell us about the cherub one. I was knocked out by that.
Thank you, thank you. Cherub was inspired by my becoming a mother. So I had this privilege of gazing, of looking upon this small baby. And one day I realized, oh, I should shoot this, because at this moment, he is beginning to find his own volition. This moment around three months old,
to touch something,
to move your head, to lift your body up.
I think I'll roll over.
I might roll over, right. And that's powerful because you can see in their face what's going on. They're trying to move, and
the face is so wonderful. I love the title Cherub too,
Yes.
because it has all of those things of innocence and perfection and spiritual protection, and and it's all expressed in his body and face, I think.
yes, it's encoded, right? It's inhabited.
Yeah.
Those ideas are inhabited. Those realities, in fact, are inhabited in each infant, everywhere in the world. This is the one I happened to capture on tape.
Yeah. And then the other thing I loved about it was, what did you do? Photograph it on black velvet?
I did. I laid out a really abstracted black space behind him. I didn't want there to be...
Because it looks like he's swimming.
Yes, or floating. Yeah, he's right.
He's floating in some kind of
Yes.
amniotic fluid
Yeah,
or
it
something.
definitely
He's
has that
just
feeling.
swimming in space, in some void. I loved that aspect of it.
And it took me a dozen years before I edited it.
Really?
Yeah, I thought about it for years. Like, what would I do? Maybe I'll, many manifestations in my mind, and then there became a moment to do it.
The way you combined it with the physical installation.
Yes, yes. So I'm very fond of cast paper, and I made cast paper sculptures to enhance the experience. And I was thinking about, how infants have this divine light. Very few people can go by them and just totally ignore them. Even if you don't care for them very much, they're radiant.
Yeah.
And that light excites me. It moves me deeply. And I loved the notion of the video beam cascading off the wall, so it projects on the wall and bounces back, and being sort of dancing inside
Illuminates
these, yes,
those
illuminating,
orbs.
yes, exactly, illuminating the sculptures. And if you sit for a period of time, your eyes adjust and you really capture what's going on in the
It's
space.
a little bit difficult for you to see it in the video that we shot, because we can't see everything, at once. But her video is very good. But also, I forget what I was going to say. Go ahead. So we have the installation of the people enjoying the sculpt. What are they? How did you make those with paper? You said?
Yeah, it's just layers and layers of starch and paper. It's a very physical activity. I found that I had to cast them all, each one in a single swoop, because I didn't get the result I wanted if I started and stopped. So I found that pretty fascinating as a process, ripping, tearing, pasting. And then it's a surprise exactly what they look like.
And how translucent they are.
The translucence.
You know what I was thinking of a second ago, which jumped out of my head, was Keith Haring's Radiant Child.
Oh yes, there we
Because
go.
that's the same concept, totally different imagery.
But
the
that
same
idea,
concept,
that
same
idea,
concept.
that I think making art that helps people celebrate the divine
And
as
see the
expressed in
wonder
children,
of the-
wonder,
Yeah.
the glory, the divinity, the celebration. Yeah.
Radiant Child.
Radiant.
Yeah. So I also want to have people look at some of your other work. You have paintings, and you have a series called Modular Laminations, which
Yes.
tell us about those.
Well, so when I'm thinking of creating a work, I'm often inspired by literature.
Oh.
And I'm often excited about trying, it's interesting, it's very similar to Cherub, this notion of, can I find an image that deeply resonates with my own personal understanding of someone's intention in the world? So for example, in the work Peace Pilgrim, I was reading about this remarkable woman who was born with some means and who, in her midlife, gave up her corporate job because she was so troubled by the nuclear race, and said, I'm going to walk across the country and tell people we need to pray for peace. This is what we have to do.
And raise people's awareness.
And raise their awareness. She did so with a tunic and little, very simple sneakers, and walked with nothing, no money, just a little notepad, and she only ate when she was offered food. I find that her writings are pure, and they elevate my sense of my own calling to peace. And she really talked a lot about finding your inner peace and then being able to express it in this outer way. And so I was thinking, here is this woman. She's probably, maybe let's say in her mid-50s. I don't exactly know, but something like that. And I was thinking of how does her experience of walking, effortlessly walking, because she's in the spirit and doing it for all the right reasons, right? To give this gift of herself to the community. What would that physically look like? And I thought it would be interesting to think of her legs and her belly. And so I shot images
Just putting
of the
one
belly.
foot in front of the other.
Yes, and so the modular nature of that work, where it's a belly, you look at a belly and then you see feet below, and the fact that they are designed in a way that they interconnect and create a pattern.
Over and over and
Yes.
over
Yes.
again, that modular
Yes.
quality.
Yes.
And then you can put them together in different ways, in different
Exactly.
settings.
So they can be installed differently. And graphically, I loved it, the way it came together. But I enjoyed the notion that people might think, what is this? And then go over and understand, oh, this is about this remarkable person.
Does your work always follow a theme or an idea, concept, a story? In other words, what if they didn't know about her walking?
Yeah, would it still make sense? Would that middle-aged belly and foot still communicate something?
But would that graphic imagery still? I think it does. I think I would still be engaged by it, whether I knew about her walking experience or not.
Yeah.
Because it's visually compelling.
And it's the body, which we relate to.
Yeah.
And it's also, and it's a middle-aged body. It's not a youthful body. And in our culture, we're very accustomed to seeing this proliferation of youthful images, but when it comes to the middle-aged body, it tends to be overlooked.
And it also comes through with the repetition.
Yes.
Over and over.
Yes.
So I think it's a very successful piece. What about the one that you had some sculptural works? There's one called Breath Thread that I liked very much.
Breath Thread. So again, in this physical realm.
Is that mostly photography?
It's photography. It's a poem that I wrote, and then they're laminated. There are pins that pierce the work, and then there are photographs that hang from the work, and there's a red thread through this work. This was inspired by an object, and interestingly, a friend of mine lost his wife to a tragic traffic accident. And I became aware that the quilt that he had on his bed is something that she made for him.
So he was still wrapped in her.
He was still wrapped in her intention. And in that, the poem came. And then I asked him to model for me, wrapped in this quilt. And I just thought about that breath thread, that thread that you certainly break by hand easily, becomes this strong bond between these persons. One passed away, and one's still here.
Quilts are like that too,
They are.
They carry all that history with them.
I held that quilt, and here's her love. That she made this.
Beautiful. And then you have another one, High is Our Calling?
Yes, High is Our Calling is a celebration for me of looking out the windows of my studio at my home and watching these branches be kind of silhouetted against the sky. And I, when you sort of get obsessed about taking images, which I did for this. So all year long, I'm taking these images and taking these images, and it happens to be, I'm a very early riser, naturally. And so I would be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sun would come through this, and you would have this dramatic sense of color.
You can have
and
that
silhouette.
at sunset too.
You can, but by sunset I want to go to sleep because I've been up since the morning, like early in the morning. No, I'm like a farmer
but I
artist.
know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
so special to
The
see
light
that,
is so stunning.
those forms moving in the light, and
Yes.
every day they're
Yes.
different colors. And
Yes, and so I started this notion of what it would be like to create a vessel. Like, how could you hold those images? What would that be like to hold them? And so on the outside of this tubular sculpture that I don't know is 8 feet tall and maybe 3 feet in diameter, I decided I would slice those images in an engaging way and laminate them. And on the inside, I would do this red twig bush. And so when you look at the outside of the sculpture,
was it naturally red twig?
yeah, absolutely. And I
dogwood?
absolutely, went crazy photographing
Okay.
that as well. And then this marriage between the outside image and the inside image meant that as you walk around the image, there's this red glow in the inside of the piece. And I thought was interesting. And you could see the inside if you put your nose right up to the sculpture.
There's also a nice kind of resonance between the physicality of the three-dimensional branches and the contrast with the somewhat dimensional photographs of the branches that are in a three-dimensional space.
Yeah, and they're taken at all seasons. So some of them are, encased in ice, and others are very spring-like. And then what I found interesting about the work, and you never know when you're making sculpture, and I think of my work as being interactive, at least in terms of where you're going to be in relationship to it. But the next thing I knew, there were people just going inside the sculpture and wanting to stand inside of it.
Where was that exhibition?
That was at the Belknap Mill in New Hampshire, Laconia.
I see,
Yeah.
I see. And then you had another photograph piece, which I remember from Arts Worcester's show of some kind, but
Yes.
and that was the Ode to Rung.
To Runga, yes. Well, it's interesting, and Ode to Runga, I think, has a lot to do with Cherub. It's an
Yes,
earlier work.
yes.
So it's from
The
that
baby
same...
lying on the back
yes.
and moving in such a radiant space.
Yes. When I was in college, I was incredibly struck by the German Romantic painter, Philipp Otto Runge. And he has this amazing image of an infant laying on his back, or her back, looking upward. So the hands are up, legs are up, and the baby's just looking upward. And then you see there's grass, and there's a meadow, and there are mountains, and you get the sense of the natural world in this really innocent little child, unprotected in a way, until you look at the next frame out, which is this angelic realm, and there are angels and all of these amazing...
It's the whole heavenly force.
I never forgot it. And it may be because I'm a person who was adopted, and I feel like maybe at some point in my life I was that child that
protected by the universal.
And adopted into a wonderful family. But it struck me very deeply. And
It's a beautiful image.
It is indeed. Thank you.
So that was the result, was that double image of
Yes.
this baby
Both
and
looking
two
down and
giant
looking up. Yes.
blown up shots.
Yeah.
I really liked that one a lot.
Thank you.
And you do painting too.
I do. I started out as a painter, and I think of all my videos as paintings, which I know people don't necessarily connect, but I do.
I think you should.
Yeah.
You should see them in their formal wonder.
I know at my gallery talk, I mentioned that I don't dream in video installation, but I dream in painting. Like I dream in color and painting and putting down tones and hues, and not all the time, but when it happens. But I don't usually dream so much in
I could
in
dream
installation.
brushstroke by brushstroke.
Yeah.
I could see one stroke going down and another.
Yeah.
And
There's something about when you're deeply involved in painting that just takes over like that.
it's like swimming in the sea all day, and then when you get into bed, you're still swimming.
Wow, that's perfect. That's exactly right.
So tell us a little bit about these, the ones you called insistent
Yes, Insistent Mercy.
Mercies.
Yeah.
Mercy or mercies?
Mercy. Insistent Mercy series.
Okay.
These were inspired by Saint Faustina's diary. She was a Polish nun in the 30s who had a deep connection with Jesus and this notion of God's unfathomable, extraordinary mercy that was offered to us every single day.
Do you equate mercy with grace? Could you use those words interchangeably?
You could. Mercy is the
Because I always think of moments of grace, where it's a gift.
Yes,
and it's
when
like
we
a
offer
mercy
to each other, we're participating in God's grace, according to Saint Faustina. And I really loved the innocent, direct way that she wrote. And it's kind of an unbelievable story, and she went through a lot of hardship because she's actually, in her beautiful way, having these visions, and she was encouraged by her spiritual director to write them down, which she did.
So how does that get to your painting?
Yeah, so I thought, how can I communicate that kind of, somehow for me, mercy feels filled with light. That's the connection for me, this light that permeates your body, a light that takes you and asks you simply to engage with it. And this kind of notion of, she gives this notion of sort of God chasing you down whether you want to or not. This is like this real insistent, I'm going to still be here.
Chesterton, I
yeah,
fled
there we
him
go.
down the roads of hell, or whatever it was. I fled him down.
There we go. So that notion. And then I had this idea that I would paint these paintings, and actually the paintings came first, and then the overlay of this, and then more paintings came. So this is a series I've worked on for a number of years. I'm still not done with it.
The part I was interested in more than, the story is really wonderful, but I loved the fact that they were troweled tiles.
Yes, it's refuse material from my building.
Yes.
One of those things where my husband, and I got a big dumpster. We were trying to move all this stuff out of the building when we first bought it. I live in an old school building, and there was a lot of things that needed to be removed. Part of that was this really less than attractive paneling that was covering beautiful brick walls. So we removed that. And on the back of these panels, as we're ripping them off the wall,
was somebody's gesture.
So I feel like I've had this lovely collaboration with some fabulous worker,
some unknown guy,
some unknown person from the 1950s, who masterfully placed all of that mastic, scraped that mastic, from one thing to another thing on the back of those panels. Mm-hmm. Those forms really excited me.
Yeah, we got to move though, because I wanted to be sure we have enough time to show people Churn.
Yes.
Now, Churn was the other one of the other videos that was at the show at Arts Worcester, and tell us about that one.
So Churn is my newest and latest installation. So it was really exciting for me to have a moment to share that with the public. That first unveiling of an installation is always interesting.
And
you're not
you
quite
see it
sure.
yourself in a different way.
Yeah, you do, because I had a
lot
lot of great feedback and questions that were really clarifying for me as I look back at the experience of the opening and the days following. But Churn was inspired by this notion of the earth that's constantly in process. Creative process is constantly a process. And then there's this physical manifestation of process, the earth process.
Creation is an ongoing event.
Creation is ongoing. And so this huge cascade of water from Niagara Falls spills onto one screen, and on the other screen there is a dynamic image of sand being churned and being created, where the particles become smaller and smaller over time. And I liked the juxtaposition of those two images, the water image and the sand image. And they're directly parallel to one another. So the viewer is invited into that space and can usually either see one image or the other. So you have to choose. And then there's this rhythmic play because they change. And my job was to choreograph how the images relate to each other Sometimes the orientation is natural, as you would expect, but there are times when the
Gravity is not.
the gravity is
Yeah.
challenged and it's reversed, which I liked a lot.
Yeah,
that notion.
I thought that was interesting.
The idea, of the natural being eternal.
Yeah.
Like it keeps going. You have a
keeps
marvelous
going.
experience seeing it.
It
but
changes and is the
changes.
same. It's kind of.
It's both.
Well, we were talking about that idea of folding being one of the
Yes.
creating principles.
Yes.
And it's in the universe. They're discovering now that the universe folds
Yes.
and creates in that way, and it's just one of the
And-
forming principles.
No, exactly. And I was rather intrigued by that and found these images and realized that I wanted to experience them larger and I wanted to experience them simultaneously in relationship to one another. And that's how that piece came about.
Wonderful. We have 3 minutes. So let's go to Femme Link, which it's such a wonderful project. I wish we had 10 minutes left, but you've been involved with this
Yes.
world video
Yes.
show. Tell us about it.
So Fem-link is a collaborative project between Veronique Sepin, who's a French video artist, and myself. Years ago, about 10 years, as a matter of fact, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary as a collective, as an artist collective. We have 145 artists from 62 countries. And we create a 2-minute video. Each one of us creates a 2-minute video on a particular theme. So that's preoccupation. Our first one was fragility. We have one on woman, resistance. These interesting topics.
So you and your partner come up with the themes.
We came up with well, yes, and now we sort of reach out to the collective. We're just very fortunate that this number of women artists from around the world have decided to join us. So if you're looking at a collage, you'll see a 2-minute piece by a woman from Algeria and another one from someone from South America and someone
It's very
from...
entertaining. I was like sitting there for an hour watching.
Yeah, yeah, and each collage has, between 30 and maybe 35 artists. And it's just been such an honor to work with Veronique, who I think of as a visionary artist. And we spent quite a lot of time trying to structure this in a way that would be enriching for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. So you can see that online too.
Yes,
As a matter of fact, there are a lot of things you can see online that we haven't had a chance to talk about. But CM Judge has a wonderful website, and you can go there and look at her paintings and sculptures and installations and the Femme Link project. And we'll give you, what is your website?
www.cmjudge.com, and Fem-link is www.femlink, spelled FEMLINK.org. We'd love to have you take a look.
Yeah. And do you have anything coming up now that you want to tell the audience about? Or?
Well, I'm most excited actually about Fem-link traveling around the world. We've been very fortunate to have exhibits recently in Canada and in Europe, a number of venues
so the
in Europe.
videos are shown in many venues throughout the whole world.
And different kinds of venues, museums, art galleries, schools, universities. So there's lots of opportunities.
Is that your task to line all that up?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
But here in the States, we have different people for different areas. So, well, the Americas. Okay, my job is the Americas.
Well,
Yeah.
there's so much to cover. I'm so glad we got a little bit in on the Fem-link. And I really wanted to thank you for coming in and sharing your work with us.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And thanks a lot, CM. I
you.
enjoyed it a lot. I learned a lot too.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and we hope we see you again next time for another edition of Arts and Ideas.